This illness is constant, like a sensor steam. The heat these days is overwhelming, with temperatures easily surpassing 30 degrees. In daily life, nothing beats air conditioning, but I always think about this. What if there were no air conditioners? How would human life have changed? I think the modern civilization we enjoy today might not even exist. So today, let's find out what would have happened if air conditioners had never been invented. First, we need to understand what an air conditioner is. An air conditioner is a machine that regulates temperature, humidity, and air quality. Machines for this purpose existed even in ancient times. In the West, during the Sumerian era, there were engineering attempts to cool down heat by utilizing the convection of air. Even in our country, there are buildings like this, such as the Hugbingo from the Silla period, which is a prime example of space cooling. The first modern electric air conditioner was invented in 1902 by Willis Carrier while working at a steel mill, rather than the type of air conditioning we typically think of. Carrier, that sounds familiar, right? That's correct. The Carrier Company, a well-known manufacturer of air conditioners, was named after its founder, Willis Carrier. He's also known by another name, the name God. The air conditioner invented in 1902 was a remarkable invention that greatly impacted human history. Let me elaborate. First of all, the most obvious benefit after the invention of the air conditioner was that it drastically reduced the number of people suffering from heat-related illnesses. Despite air conditioning, there are still over 2,000 annual cases of heat-related illnesses. Without air conditioning, this number would be significantly higher. Even without air conditioners, global warming would have persisted, leading to an exponential rise in people suffering from heat-related illnesses. Without air conditioners in this scorching weather, there would likely be a surge in heat stroke patients. If there hadn't been air conditioners in places like the military, where conditions are already tough, the damage would have been even greater. After air conditioning was invented, heat-related deaths decreased by over 40%. The invention of air conditioning expanded the scope of human activity, enabling the existence of city-states in tropical regions. Lee Kuan Yew, Singapore's first prime minister, declared the air conditioner as the greatest invention in human history. The proliferation of air conditioners enabled the development of cities like Singapore, Dubai, and Las Vegas in tropical climates. For example, Singapore has a very hot and humid climate, and it even rains every day, making it an environment where people couldn't live long term. Today, Singapore has successfully developed into an advanced nation. The reason for this is that they installed air conditioning in all the large buildings, creating an environment where people could work continuously. Air conditioning has enabled the construction of large cities in subtropical and tropical regions. In hot, humid countries, life would grind to a halt in summer without air conditioning. Even in our own country, productivity would suffer greatly during the summer months in the absence of air conditioning. If you work in a factory and the temperature rises to 35 or 36 degrees, making it even hotter inside, how could you possibly work in those conditions? Air conditioning has expanded the range of human activity by preventing heat stroke, allowing people to work in conditions that would otherwise be impossible. Earlier, I mentioned that air conditioning refers to a machine that controls temperature, humidity, and air quality. This also brought about major changes in transportation and buildings. In places where large numbers of people are crowded together, or in places like subways or factories, it's only natural that as time passes, the quality of the air inevitably gets worse. But air conditioners ended up solving all of these problems. If you look at the places where air conditioners were first installed, they were industrial sites, factories, department stores, and theaters. What does this mean? It means that not only does it cool the air, but it also helps create a comfortable indoor environment. Let's take department stores as an example. If there's a department store crowded with people in the summer, but it doesn't have air conditioning, would you be able to go there? And also, if you're watching a movie in a theater, but the theater feels like a sauna, would you be able to enjoy the movie properly? You wouldn't. The advent of air conditioning led to the emergence of large-scale facilities and played a huge role in transportation. For subways, they had to devise ways to provide oxygen and eliminate exhaust fumes. This was nearly impossible until the invention of air conditioning. The development and installation of air conditioning in subways improved air quality and comfort by adjusting temperature levels. It also contributed to the success of air passenger travel. Old pilots frequently wore thick leather jackets as part of their outfits. This is because warm clothing was essential to withstand the cold on airplanes flying at high altitudes for long periods. The current situation is different due to the development of air conditioning, making it more comfortable now. With the invention of air conditioning, the inside of airplanes no longer became cold, and with the addition of devices that made the air comfortable, this was the starting point for large-scale air passenger travel. Air conditioning also significantly changed architectural styles. Even as recently as the mid-20th century, buildings would become unbearably hot inside during the summer. So it was often impossible to enter rooms with low ceilings and no windows. So, most buildings constructed during this time had to be ventilated to keep the indoor temperature at a level people could tolerate. That's why every room had windows and high ceilings. As time passed, ceilings lowered and windows became smaller. So, if you compare buildings built in the 1940s and 50s with those built today, you'll notice subtle differences. Without air conditioning, we'd likely still have homes with high ceilings and many windows. Most importantly, when I served in the military, I entered and exited the brigade's server room as frequently as I ate. This place was incredibly cool in the summer due to the constantly blasting air conditioning. Let me explain why. In server rooms or data centers, a variety of data is stored and a huge number of servers are constantly running. The electrical equipment generates heat while storing and processing vast amounts of data, and the air conditioner regulates that heat. During my time in the military, our entire brigade experienced a blackout. Despite using emergency power, the air conditioner failed and the whole server shut down. If you think about it differently, if there were no air conditioners, today's large-scale information technology infrastructure itself wouldn't exist. To make it more relatable, we might not be able to use YouTube or the internet itself if Google data centers were compromised. The growth of today's giant information technology companies can be attributed to the existence of air conditioners. Air conditioners are crucial for keeping hundreds of millions of servers running continuously, enabling widespread internet access and benefits for many people. If that happened, world history would have changed several times over. Of course, some information technology companies are thinking about building data centers in the ocean to cut costs a bit. The air-cooled method is the principle of using air conditioning to remove heat from servers. Using water instead of air is called the water-cooled method. In terms of maintenance costs, the water-cooled method is much cheaper, but the installation costs are enormous. The water-cooled method was only possible after the information technology revolution, so without air conditioning, this information technology revolution might not have happened. It's not an exaggeration to say that the reason we can eat fresh food is because of air conditioning. Maintaining all these temperatures is all thanks to the power of air conditioning. Air conditioning in logistics trucks has enabled us to maintain proper temperatures, allowing us to consume fresh food from around the world. This has also transformed global food culture. Here's a simple example. Let's say we're eating Australian beef. In order to eat this beef, it has to be shipped to Korea in a refrigerated container. However, refrigerated containers require air conditioning to function. Without it, we couldn't consume Australian beef. This is true for our country too. We likely can't afford meat except for special events like weddings. The meat is sure to spoil before reaching the table. Of course, before the invention of air conditioning, people weren't foolish, so they used various methods like salting or smoking to preserve food for as long as possible. However, these methods couldn't fully prevent spoilage, so food poisoning was a common cause of illness and death. So our food culture would have been limited to foods produced locally, and there wouldn't have been a variety of ingredients at the supermarket, because there wouldn't have been air conditioning. Carrier is frequently blamed for global warming, but it's no overstatement to say that Willis Carrier's invention of the air conditioner altered the course of human history. It broadened human activity's scope and became crucial in developing mechanical facilities, like food storage and data centers that handle and store immense information quantities. If the development of air conditioners had been delayed, we would probably be living in an era where technological advancement was just as far behind. Reese Carrier was included in Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people of the 20th century for his achievements. Air conditioners have profoundly shaped society, including politics, economy, military, and education. To withstand the extreme heat, human lives may have changed drastically. That's why it's no exaggeration to say that air conditioners are not just simple appliances, but tools that have evolved civilization. What do you think would have happened if there were no air conditioners? For me, I probably would have collapsed from heat stroke during my military service. Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.